So Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is in a pretty tight race right now. Tighter, you might even say, than these skinny jeans she had on the other day.
All right, so we are still waiting on same-day voting ballots to be counted, to be reported. But I just talked to some folks at the Mesa County elections who say they have about 10 to 15,000 ballots that have not been reported. And we know that a lot of Republicans have waited for today to vote. So if they're doing that in Mesa County, they're doing it all over Colorado's 3rd District. Pueblo has already announced that they will not count today's votes, today's ballots that were cast tonight. They are going to wait until tomorrow. So there is no way. I agree. We have countries who count all of their votes on the same day, and you deserve the same here in America.
So a quick little history of what made Lauren Boebert become who she is today. It can be read from this BBC article. U.S. election results. Who is Lauren Boebert, Colorado's MAGA star? And so again, they continually try to associate any kind of rogue candidate that pops up on the political scene that isn't completely bought and paid for. The new brand in this witch hunt. If they got a brand on your back is the red hat MAGA. That's what makes you a potential terrorist, extremist, not, as a lot of the political advertisements would say over and over again about every single Republican candidate here in this state, not one of us, right? So according to this article from BBC, as always, consider the source, but in September 2019, Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke made a stop in Aurora, Colorado. Mr. O'Rourke had made gun control central to his campaign. And in Aurora that day, he doubled down on his call to ban semi-automatic weapons. As he spoke, most of the crowd clapped. Lauren Boebert did not. Mrs. Boebert, 35, a restaurant owner and a mother of 4, had driven 3 hours from her home in Rifle, Colorado, to confront Mr. O'Rourke.
In Colorado, the issue remains divisive. State Representative Tom Sullivan, whose son Alex died in the theater, introduced O'Rourke, while Lauren Boebert drove 3 hours from Rifle, openly carrying a handgun to confront the presidential candidate.
I was one of the gun-owning Americans that heard your speech regarding hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s. Well, I am here to say hell no, you're not.
And if he's going to send people into homes to take people's personal property, then he's got a big issue on his hand.
She says the mandatory buyback goes too far, while Columbine survivor Evan Todd says it's not far enough.
Don't you think it's time we get rid of all semi-auto firearms?
O'Rourke said he's open to that. As for Boebert's concerns,
do I care more about how upset somebody is who owns a weapon of war that they don't need for hunting or for self-defense? Or do I care more about the families who've lost a child?
But when pressed on how the mandatory buyback would work, he hesitated.
You send law enforcement into somebody's house to take their gun?
No, I wouldn't. I would expect our fellow Americans to follow the law. If they don't and they flagrantly abuse that law, yes, that weapon would be taken from them.
The moment caught on video went viral and became a conservative media talking point. A Republican star was born. 3 months later, she announced her bid to represent Colorado's 3rd congressional district in Congress. So that's a little quick past history of Miss Boebert. So they're trying to, with these headlines, kind of like steal her thunder, okay? Continue this narrative that the red wave, was a big bust. And with typical, news speak, this article reads from the Colorado Sun, meet Adam Frisch, the candidate who shocked Lauren Boebert and his fellow Democrats. And this is the funny part, the starting paragraph. Win or lose, Democrat Adam Frisch shocked Republican U.S. Rep. Lauren Boebert and the National Democratic establishment that gave him little chance of succeeding in Tuesday's election. So he's the anti-establishment one, right? Not Lauren Boebert. And yeah, of course, I highlighted this. His father became an obstetrician, genealogist in the early 1970s, and he later worked with Planned Parenthood before retiring. Does that sound familiar? Ring a bell? Yeah. More eugenicist, maybe. Just speculating. But yeah, he's the anti-establishment guy, right? After it goes on here at the very end, down here where nobody else will read that far into him. On the national level, 2 new Democratic super PACs threw a bit of money his way. Colorado United PAC spent $290,000, and People for Good Sense spent $273,000 on TV, radio, and digital advertisement in the past month. Colorado United PAC received $175,000 from PAC founder John Powers of Boulder, who also founded the Alliance Center in Denver, which houses several progressive groups. The PAC also received $100,000 from Denver investor John S. Buckley Jr. People for Good Sense founder and Aspen investor Adam Lewis donated $100,000, and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman chipped in $50,000. He's the anti-establishment guy, though, right, folks? Yeah, they get the what do you call himself, a currency trader? Whatever that is, right? I mean, here you have Boebert, who's actually producing something, for the local economy, food, place to eat, place to enjoy yourself, spend time with friends and family. And this guy is a currency trader. And, of course, married to an investment banker. So, go figure. But he's the outsider, right, guys? Yeah, so the pollsters, and I saw this website linked from a different article, updated on November 8th, that was just 2 days ago. Boebert is clearly favored to win Colorado's 3rd district. And blah, blah, blah. So the deluxe version of our model simulates the election 40,000 times to see who wins most often. The sample of 100 outcomes gives you an idea of the range of scenarios the model considers possible. So according to this model, this little kind of chintzy graph they got here, Lauren Boebert wins 97 in 100. 97 out of 100 mock. However they run these algorithms to figure out who wins. But Adam Frisch wins 3 in 100. And, all these Southern Colorado, the Western Slope. I think I read another article that the registered voters, Republican registered voters, have a 9-point lead on the Democrats in those areas. And I think it's been a good decade or so since they ever had a Democrat in that position. So why do you think the odds went from 97 and 100, according to this pollster website, projects538.com? Why do you think it became such a close race? I have a few theories, right? I always do, bubbling through my head. But interesting thing was Pueblo County, which Boebert represents. I gotta learn how to spell Pueblo County voting machine. Little known, that's for sure. Not too well known at all. Story here. And this just stumbled on this before the before Election Day. Because this happened just about a week ago. The original stories were 6 days ago. Pueblo man charged with felony under new election law denies wrongdoing. Okay. And there's one of those reliable voting machines. Richard Ian Patton, 31, was arrested Thursday by Pueblo police after an incident on June 20th, in which police claim he inserted a device into a voting machine. No information was breached, they say. No major disruption was caused to the voting process, according to the Pueblo Police Department. Patton is a registered Democrat, records show. And this is why it's not in the headlines. This is why it's not on the TV. Because it doesn't fit the narrative that the extreme right are the greatest threat to our democracy, right? As the actor, half-conscious president continually reinforces. And so the confirmed chieftain, Judicial District Attorney Jeff Chostner, is charging Patton with tampering with voting equipment, a Class 5 felony, along with computer crime, exceeding excess, a Class 2 misdemeanor. So reports from Pueblo PD on the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office allege that just before 6 p.m. on election night, Patton came into the downtown office of the elections departments to vote in person. Election workers told law enforcement that Patton asked them about the site's security presence before he cast a ballot. Patton dropped off his ballot before leaving the office. The records confirmed his ballot was cast. Shortly after Patton left, I wonder who he voted for. Probably not Boebert. Shortly after Patton left, an election worker went to clean the machine per COVID-19 protocols. Police said an error code on the screen after Patton left read, USB device detected. Please call a poll worker for assistance. So the software in these machines are theoretically designed to come up with an error message. If anything is tampered, they have seals, I guess, over the ports. If anybody tries to plug in anything into these voting machines, then an error message will pop up. And hopefully the poll workers will realize that something has happened that could compromise election integrity, right? Drake Remke, the election supervisor, dispatched to Pueblo County after thousands of incorrect primary ballots were mailed to some Pueblo voters. The plot just keeps thickening, don't it? So the guy was already out there because of this election supervisor was already dispatched to Pueblo County after thousands of incorrect primary ballots were mailed to some Pueblo voters. Told law enforcement that evening that he wasn't sure if a USB device had been plugged into the machine, but multiple election workers said the seals on the voting machine had been tampered with. And again, this is Pueblo County. And in fact, Pueblo, the city, the big city down there, down south, which they say, some articles I've read, tends to lean Democrat, but depending on how energized, your base is, Boebert was still planning on having pretty good success in Pueblo. Pueblo, the town of, is still one of these towns, these holdouts, that they haven't quite read the entire vote count yet. And now, a day plus later after the election. So all this crap is going down in Pueblo, right? And they're still yet to tally up the vote in Pueblo in this very, very extremely tight race. That wasn't expected to be tight, right? Nobody expected this race to be this close. And like I've said, and I'll say it again, I've never seen a race this close. Within literally dozens of votes. That in itself is a little fishy, isn't it? A little shady. Yeah, a little shady. So an election worker stated to the investigators that the seals were not damaged, but a USB cord had been pulled out and white marks visible on the seal indicating tampering. In an interview with a chieftain on Monday, Patton denied any wrongdoing. He said he requested an election worker's help for voting and accused the worker of tampering with the machine, saying that the worker inserted something into the machine and interfered with the seal when he called for help. So blame it on the election worker. Good story, man. Is there any cameras in this place? Probably not. Probably not. Everything else, the police, everything else has body cameras, but no cameras in the voting places. So yeah, he's claiming he's dyslexic. Can you help me? I can't help you read. Could you voting machine? I'm like, ma'am, I pressed the screen. It told me to do red box. So he's claiming to be dyslexic and completely innocent in the matter. Now, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't, just accuse somebody of such a serious crime without pretty good evidence, right? And Pueblo County Clerk and Recorder Gilbert Bo Ortiz denied Payton's claim that an election judge had tampered with the machine. So it's he said, she said at this point. Patton added that he donated $5 each to re-election campaign of Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold and Governor Jared Polis to support election security. Yeah, I'm sure you did, bud. Sure you did, bud. Another article, man arrested on suspicion of tampering with voting machine. This was just November 4th, not too long ago, just about a week ago. I didn't see this blow up on any headlines. I didn't see this on the TV. I didn't see any coverage of this whatsoever. And perhaps it's because, the first paragraph starts out with a Colorado man who is a registered Democrat voter has been arrested on suspicion of tampering with voting equipment by allegedly inserting a USB thumb drive into a voting machine at a polling station during the primary election in June, authorities said. No election data were accessed, and the June 28th incident didn't cause any major disruption to voting, authorities said. But it heightened concerns among election officials and security experts that conspiracy theories related to the 2020 presidential election could inspire some voters to meddle with or even attempt to sabotage election equipment, right? Except that doesn't fit the script because this is a Democratic voter. And that's probably why it's not making headlines. Experts say even unsuccessful breaches could become major problems in the days leading up to and on Tuesday's midterm election, causing delays in polling places or sowing seeds of misinformation campaigns. Wouldn't want that, would you? Misinformation about the integrity of our elections. Richard Patton, 31, of Pueblo, was arrested on Thursday by members of the Pueblo Police Department High-Tech Crime Unit for investigation of tampering with voting equipment, a felony and a cybercrime. Unauthorized access, a misdemeanor, the department said in a statement. Court records indicate Patton was being held without bond in Pueblo County Judicial Center pending an advisement hearing later Friday. On the afternoon of June 28th, poll workers heard noises coming from a voting booth. When a poll worker went to investigate and clean the machine, they saw an error message and notified a supervisor. Tamper evidence seals in the machine appeared to be disturbed, the secretary office said. The machine was immediately taken out of service for investigation. Activists who promote the false claim that the 2020 election was stolen from former President Donald Trump have been traveling the country peddling a narrative that the election voting machines are being manipulated. Well, this one kind of fits that narrative, doesn't it? Especially since it's a Democratic voter. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold said Friday that this is the first arrest and potential prosecution of a new law broadening the definition of tampering with election equipment and strengthening the penalty for it. It is now a felony punishable by up to 3 years in prison. Quote, the continued spread of election conspiracies and the big lie of fueling threats to American elections, including, I don't know any other propagator of that propaganda that's greater than the corporate enemy of the people news media over the full 4 years that Trump was in office, but let's just set that aside for now. Including, efforts to interfere with election equipment. Griswold, it is vital that anyone who breaks the law and attempts to subverting the will of the people or undermining the elections be held responsible unless you're above the law, right? Right, Miss Griswold? Citing an ongoing investigation, Pueblo Police spokesman Officer Megan Chapman said the department could not release further information. Okay. And he's got a warrant for his arrest and all that stuff. And again, this was a week ago. Things have changed since then. So there you have it. In this contested, very close surprise, all the pollsters with their algorithms, couldn't predict that this would be such a tight race. Look at this. Does this look like a tight race to you? 97 out of 100, Boebert wins. So it's just interesting to me that, the reports of this guy that was caught tampering with voting machines, as well as the, thousands of ballots that were sent out by mistake to the wrong people in Pueblo County. How it comes down to, as this article puts it, both campaigns are zeroing in on two key counties, Pueblo and Mesa, that have outstanding votes and will likely play a key role in determining the winner of the competitive Colorado race. Pueblo County, liberal-leaning area that overwhelmingly voted for President Biden in 2020, has broken in favor of Frisch thus far over Boebert, 55% to 45%, with 92% of the vote in, according to the Times. Frisch's spokesperson noted that the county typically takes a long time to report votes. Yes, and in particular, this time around, I'm sure they're going to take their sweet time, aren't they? So, is that a coincidence? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. What do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments section if you can. Not at all expected. The pollsters didn't expect this race to be so close. And all of a sudden, when the polls closed, out of nowhere, this Frisch guy was ahead. And more so, his lead has been diminished. And it's been getting closer and closer and down to the wire. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this all develops, right? For good or for bad. Hopefully, my current theory is that, they're just trying to steal her thunder. They're trying to delay the vote count as long as they can. Perhaps they kind of got caught red-handed and they kind of backed off their plot to completely steal this election. But they being the establishment, of course, yes, because establishment, the biggest fear, the biggest threat to the establishment are true populists like Mrs. Boebert. And creating waves and creating excitement and creating momentum around other potential rogue candidates that might want to run for office and, use the power of social media to grab hold of bit by bit more and more of the reins of political power. That's the biggest threat to the establishment, right? And so that's why we're continually hearing this narrative, way back now to the for part 1. I haven't done part 2 yet, but part 1 of the Dark Brandon Red speech, where he declared war, basically, on the MAGAs, or the extremist right, as the enemies of our democracy, the biggest threat that we face as American people. The biggest threat to our democracy are the right-wing extremists. And so it's a convenient label, to label any true outsider, anybody who, like Boebert, is not controlled by a special interest in Washington. Not a genetically modified swamp creature. She's a rogue. She's a free agent. And so it's in the interest of the establishment to do their best to demonize these people and to create this fear campaign to try to run these people out of town, basically, right? Run them out of office. And that's what I think they're trying to do with Boebert and a few others. But thankfully, there's still enough people out here that are awake. And even in this largely blue state of Colorado now, unfortunately, there's still a few, holdouts. There's some down south, the western slope, there's some ranchers, there's some, just good old, people that are worried about the bread and butter issues, right? And and yes, ultimately preserving our constitutional republic. And if we can just hone in on some of those key points, this race in particular should tell everybody how important it is on the local level. I'm not saying so much on the top-down, corrupt, left-right duopoly in Washington. On the federal level, I'm seeing more and more that's just a lost cause. But on the local level, right, electing local senators, congressmen, even sheriffs, different political seats, there's still some potential, for change from the business as usual raping and pillaging of America. But, in a vote with literally a handful to distinguish, to choose who wins. It just goes to show you, get out there, or at least cast your ballot, and research yourself, be educated about it. Don't just randomly select this or that person. I'll admit, this year I'm guilty of just literally voting red down the line, because this state has gotten so blue that it needs some kind of a counterbalance, right? And unfortunately, the politics of the lowest common denominator just never ceases to amaze me. Baffles my mind. What people will continually vote for and continually get screwed time and time again by these same actors in office. And they'll keep re-electing them back into office. Yeah, all they have to do is convince enough stupid people to keep voting. Then all of the rest of us who are halfway paying attention, halfway self-educated, self-informed, researched on the topic, on the issues, we'll be in the minority, and we'll be outvoted by the idiocratic majority. Okay, let's just call it that. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Nightwatch N8. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you haven't yet, subscribe, hit notifications, do what you can to support the show. Likes always help. Shares, coffee if you can. Anything you can to support the show, I appreciate it, and I'll keep making them as long as I continue to get some feedback from you guys out there. God bless. Nightwatch N8, signing out.
This is about taking money from rice. It's about protecting children. It's about protecting families. It's about protecting local communities. This is about taking money with rice, taking rice, name do you need to solve it for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake. It's just sick. For God's sake.